Here is audio of Deion talking about a salary cap need, Albert.
I wish it was a cap. You know, like the top of the line player makes this. And if you're not that type of guy, you know you're not going to make that. That's what the NFL does. So the problem is you got a guy that's not that darn good, but he could go to another school and they give him $500,000 and you can't compete with that. That don't make sense. And all you have to do is look at the playoffs and see what those teams spent. And you understand darn near why they're in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. It's kind of hard to compete with somebody who's giving $25-30 million to a darn freshman class.
Right.
It's crazy. The team that pays the most is going to be there in the end.
Yo, Shedeur fans, we just got some insane news that's got me heated right now. Deion Sanders just came out swinging about college football, and Albert Breer from The Athletic is backing him up with some absolutely wild information. Coach Prime is literally saying teams are dropping $25 to $30 million on freshman classes, while he's out here trying to compete with programs that are straight up buying players he can't afford. I mean, we're talking about schools giving $500,000 to guys who aren't that darn good, according to Deion. And honestly, after hearing what Breer had to say, I think Coach Prime might be getting absolutely robbed in this recruiting game. This is about to get controversial. So buckle up, because what I'm about to show you is going to change how you look at college football forever. Look, I'm someone who will call it how it is. And from what I've seen, Deion Sanders is getting the short end of the stick in this whole NIL mess. You guys know I'm passionate about Shedeur and everything the Sanders family is doing at Colorado. But the situation is bigger than just one player or one program. This is about fairness. And right now, Coach Prime is fighting an uphill battle that honestly shouldn't exist. So here's what went down. Deion Sanders recently made some comments about needing a salary cap in college football. And when I first heard it, I thought, okay, that's interesting. But then Albert Breer from The Athletic broke it down on the herd. And man, the stuff he revealed had me shook. We're talking about the future of college football here.
Financial literacy classes should be mandatory, so these kids understand how to manage their money. And I think it should be a pay scale. It should be structured. It can't be just Tom, Dick, and Harry gets this because he had a great year somewhere else. Then that throws off the chemistry and the structure of your whole team. It's not fair. And I think the NFL has handled it right, and we need to mimic the NFL. The teams that don't have the budgets, like us, it's going to be hard to sit up here in front of you and make it to a playoff game, because now it turns into pay-per-view.
Whoa! And more importantly, how it's affecting programs like Colorado that are trying to build something special without breaking the bank. From what I've seen in the clips and what Breer is saying, this whole NIL situation has gotten completely out of hand. And I could be wrong about this, but I think Deion is being way too diplomatic about what's really happening. The man is basically saying that schools are throwing around money like it's monopoly cash, and he can't compete with that madness. Here's what Deion said, and I want you guys to really listen to this because it's going to blow your mind. Coach Prime straight up said he wishes there was a salary cap for the top of the line player. Makes a certain amount, and if you're not that type of guy, you don't get paid like you are. That's exactly what the NFL does, right? Makes perfect sense to me. But here's where it gets crazy. And this is what really got me fired up. Deion said there are guys who aren't that darn good, but they can go to another school and get $500,000. And Colorado can't compete with that. $500,000 for players who aren't even elite. That's absolutely insane to me. And you know what? That's a fair argument. I mean, think about it from Colorado's perspective. They're trying to build a program the right way, developing players, creating a culture. And then some random school comes in and throws stupid money at recruits just because they can. That's not competition. That's just buying players. But wait, it gets worse. Deion dropped this bomb that really opened my eyes. He said if you look at the playoff teams, you can see exactly what they spent. And that's why they're in the playoffs. The teams that pay the most are the ones that are there. He specifically mentioned teams dropping $25 to $30 million on freshman classes alone. Freshman classes. That's more than some NFL teams spend on their entire roster. Now, Albert Breer had some interesting perspective on this whole situation, and honestly, some of what he said made me think differently about where Deion is coming from. Breer basically said that what Deion is asking for, these guardrails, these limits, it makes sense for a program like Colorado. That isn't a traditional blue blood like Alabama, Ohio State, or Texas. And you know what? I think that's exactly right. Colorado is trying to compete with programs that have been elite for decades. have massive alumni bases, and frankly, just have more money to throw around. It's not a level playing field. And that's what's frustrating about this whole thing. From what they're showing us, this NIL situation is basically turning college football into a bidding war. And in a bidding war, the richest programs are always going to win. That's not about coaching. That's not about development. That's not about creating a winning culture. That's just about who has the deepest pockets. But here's where I think the conversation gets really interesting. And this is something Breer brought up that I hadn't really thought about before. He said that if you're going to put a salary cap in place, it would basically require these players to be classified as employees. And if they're employees, they need to unionize and have collective bargaining agreements. Now, I don't know about you guys, but the idea of college football players having a union sounds absolutely wild to me. But maybe that's where we're headed. I mean, if schools are dropping $30 million on recruiting classes, are these guys really student athletes anymore? Or are they just professional players who happen to go to school?
NIL, and are schools going to be able to spend above the $20 million in NIL? How do you classify NIL versus money that's coming from the school? I think all of that needs clarification. And then I think the other one that's really obvious is whether or not they unionize.
Yeah.
And forever and ever and ever, the NCAA has pushed back against any sort of thought that these guys would be classified as employees. But if you're going to put a salary cap in place, it would pretty much necessitate a collective bargaining agreement, which would necessitate unionization and making these guys employees.
Let me break down what Brewer said that really caught my attention, because this is where it gets technical, but also really important for understanding why Deion is frustrated. Brewer explained that college coaches have been discussing the need for guardrails for years now. They want some sort of system that puts rules in place that everybody has to play by. And here's the key part. Brewer said it might not be apples to apples from program to program, but it would give everybody a fighting chance. That's exactly what Colorado needs right now. They need a fighting chance to compete with these mega programs that are just buying talent. Brewer also mentioned something that I think is really important. He said there's this revenue sharing piece that goes up to $20 million, but then there's also NIL on top of that. So schools might be able to spend above the $20 million in NIL, and nobody really knows how to classify that money or regulate it. From what I've seen, that's where the problem is. The NIL money is basically the Wild West right now. There are no rules, no regulations, no oversight. Schools can just throw money at players and nobody can stop them. And that brings us back to Deion's frustration. He's trying to build a program at Colorado, develop players like Shadur, create a winning culture. And then some school comes in and offers a player $500,000 just because they can. How is that fair? How is that competitive? But here's where I want to defend Coach Prime a little bit, because I think some people are missing the bigger picture. Deion isn't complaining because he's losing. He's complaining because the system is broken. And honestly, I think he's right. Think about it this way. Deion could have gone to any school he wanted when he decided to get into coaching. He chose Colorado because he saw potential there. He saw an opportunity to build something special. But now he's finding out that building something special isn't enough. If you can't compete financially with schools that are just buying players, and that's where I think the real problem is. We're not talking about schools that are better at coaching or better at developing players. We're talking about schools that are just richer. And that's not what college football should be about. What do you guys think about this? Are we heading toward a world where only the richest programs can compete? Because from what I'm seeing, that's exactly where we're going. And here's another thing that really bothers me about this whole situation. Deion mentioned that some of these players getting big money aren't that darn good. Now, I'm not saying he's wrong, but think about what that means for player development. If schools are throwing huge money at players who aren't elite, what incentive do those players have to get better? What incentive do they have to work hard, to develop their skills, to become better players? They're already getting paid like they're superstars. That's not how it works in the NFL. In the NFL, you get paid based on your performance. You get paid based on your value to the team. You get paid based on what you contribute. But in college football right now, it seems like schools are just throwing money around hoping something sticks. And that's not fair to coaches like Deion who are trying to build programs the right way. It's not fair to players who are working hard to develop their skills. And it's definitely not fair to fans who just want to see good football. I mean, let's be real here. When Deion says, it's hard to compete with somebody who's spending $25 to $30 million on a freshman class, he's not exaggerating. That's real money. That's life-changing money for these players. And if Colorado can't match that, how are they supposed to compete? But here's what I think is really interesting about this whole situation. Deion isn't asking for handouts. He's not asking for special treatment. He's asking for fairness. He's asking for a level playing field. And honestly, I think that's reasonable. The salary cap idea that Deion is proposing would actually benefit everyone. It would give schools like Colorado a chance to compete. It would force schools to be more strategic about how they spend their money. And it would probably lead to better football overall because teams would have to focus on coaching and development instead of just buying talent. But here's the thing, and this is something Brewer mentioned that I think is really important. The NCAA has been fighting against treating these players as employees forever. They've always maintained that these are student athletes, not professional players. But if you're going to have a salary cap, you basically have to treat them as employees. And that's where things get complicated. Because if these players are employees, then they have rights. They can unionize, they can negotiate, they can demand better treatment. And honestly, maybe that's not a bad thing from what I've seen. The current system isn't working for anybody except the richest programs. It's not working for players who are getting exploited. It's not working for coaches who are trying to build programs the right way. And it's definitely not working for fans who just want to see competitive football. So what's the solution? I don't know, and I don't think anybody really knows. But I think Deion is right to bring this up. Somebody needs to talk about this stuff, and I'm glad it's someone with his platform and his credibility. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think Deion is right about needing a salary cap? Do you think the current NIL system is fair? Are schools like Colorado getting screwed over by programs with deeper pockets? Because honestly, after looking at all this information, I think Coach Prime is getting robbed. I think he's trying to compete in a system that's rigged against him. And I think something needs to change. The way I see it, college football is at a crossroads right now. We can either figure out how to make this system fair for everybody, or we can just accept that only the richest programs are going to be able to compete. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't think that's good for the sport. What Deion is asking for isn't crazy. It's not unreasonable. It's just fair. And honestly, I think more coaches should be speaking up about this stuff. Because if we don't fix this now, college football is going to turn into something completely different than what it's supposed to be. So that's my take on this whole situation. Deion Sanders is fighting for fairness, and I think we should support him. Colorado is trying to build something special, and they deserve a fair shot to compete. And honestly, I think the salary cap idea makes a lot of sense. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this, because we're going to keep following this story and see where it goes. This is just the beginning of what could be a huge change in college football, and I want to make sure you guys are up to date on everything that's happening. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.